Anna Dolidze, professor, politician, and founder of the For the People Party, it is my pleasure to interview you for the first time for the Georgia Today interview.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be your guest.
Impeachment process of the President Zurabishvili is underway. What do you think about this?
Well, for us, for our party, this decision or this move from the ruling party is unjustified, both from the perspective of contents as well as timing. From the perspective of contents, compared to the amount of issues that Georgian Dream has at hand and amount of governance decisions they have to make, starting from climate change to the collection and export of walnuts from Georgia and relevant assistance to Georgian farmers, there's a plethora of questions that and obligations that Georgian Dream has to perform. And instead of this, they are chasing an issue where the damage, the result, the outcome actually is not at all as significant. So even if, and I don't want to go into the detail because I do not want deliberately to devote as much time to discussing to this issue, the details of this issue, because I think specifically the objective of GD is to divert the attention of the public from pressing serious problems to this issue where the significance of it is not as big. And on the other hand, the timing of it is very wrong because right now Georgia is awaiting the decision from the European Union in relation to the status and candidacy status. And we have to be actually in the process of performing our the recommendations which were handed out to us. So instead of a very serious business discussion on whether the recommendations have been fulfilled, where do we stand, what we shall be doing to receive the candidacy status, what the Georgian Dream is doing. It is impeaching current president, and of course this is not going to impact the reputation of Georgia abroad in a positive light. So from both perspectives, this move is unjustified.
Only a few months remain before we hear whether Georgia will be granted with the EU candidate status or not. High Representative of the European Union Joseph Borrell, who recently visited Georgia, said that only 3 out of 12 recommendations are fulfilled. Tell us about your expectations.
Yes, unfortunately, it is indeed the case that Georgian Dream did not put enough effort in drafting the reforms to meet the recommendations. And I have to say, knowing very well Georgian public service, they are very much capable in delivering these recommendations and in drafting these reforms. There have been myriads of ideas and proposals in relation to the area that I know best, and that is the judicial reform. They could have been written and delivered to EU like this in a fortnight. And right now, however, unfortunately, GD chose not to do so. I can speak specifically of a couple of areas. One area is judicial reform, where the reform has not been as robust, as serious, as impactful as is necessary to get rid of the informal group that is running the courts right now and to ensure the independence of the courts. The same concerns, for example, the measures to be taken in relation to violence against women. We are in a really dire situation on this issue, and I haven't seen any reforms in this regard. The same could be said about fighting organized crime, a specific recommendation, or de-oligarchization, where we have a specific proposal in relation to people who have been working for the businesses and for the family of Bidzina Ivanishvili. So unfortunately, it's true, and it makes me very sad that GD did not invest enough in delivering on those recommendations.
Out of nowhere, United States sanctioned Mr. Partshaladze. What was your reaction when you heard it, and did you see it coming?
The United States first sanctions a group of judges that I would say really deserved this kind of pressure. In fact, this sanction came a little late, if you ask me, because the campaign against the organized group, that informal group that runs the courts, so-called clan or quasi-mafia group, the campaign was in its heyday, maybe in 2018-19. I was its leader, among others. And this is when we really needed, when there was a serious grassroots movement, and it would be nice to receive relevant response from abroad, a serious response. We did receive various reports from international organizations and partner states. But anyways, this sanction is absolutely a justified form of pressure. And the next one was in what I think will be a series of sanctions. The next one was against Mr. Partkhaladze. I didn't see personally it coming, although we knew that considering the policy of the United States, there is not only a single sanction, it's a series of sanctions. Partkhaladze, he is, I think, a diagnosis of the system right now, in the sense that this is an informal actor, a person who has accumulated incredible wealth, who has served at very high levels of government, and he continues to exercise this power as a mediator between various echelons or various levels of government. And if you read literature about informal governance, it needs these key actors. So I think Partkhaladze did deserve this sanction, this response. If he and actors like him are removed from the scene, the power of informal governance will definitely diminish. And I expect that the sanctions will not stop at Mr. Partkhaladze only.
What really raises questions to me is that, unlike Mr. Ivanishvili, you've never called Mr. Partkhaladze an oligarch. I wonder, how come you didn't know anything about him?
Oh, no, we raised his name many times, but a couple of years ago, because he was...
Publicly?
Publicly, yes, publicly, not requesting a sanction, but raising the issue of him as an actor. Because you might remember that he was allegedly engaged in this large-scale fraud scheme, which amounts to 700 million lari, GEL, Georgian currency, related to VAT taxation. At that time, it was raised. So he was implicated in various shady deals. However, you are right in the sense that we didn't identify him specifically as this informal interlocutor. And it's good that US, with its intelligence sources as well, powerful sources, could identify him as also as an interlocutor with Russia. And what we could identify, though, knowing the informal governance structure, informal governance has its own structure, how it's run. I know it personally because I've observed the judges in the High Council of Justice. So the formal government structures need an interlocutor, a go-between person who will take back and forth the messages between the informal governor and the established structures. And we used to identify other people like Chinchaladze, one of the judges, Murasize, one of the judges, other people in the judicial system. However, we never pointed to Partkhaladze per se. I guess he was too skillful to remain from the public eye.
Who else do you expect to be on that list?
There are a number of people who serve very important roles. And these people are below Bidzina Ivanishvili, for example, small oligarch, small not in terms of what ordinary people could afford, but in terms of the wealth that's above him, is, for example, Vano Chartishvili, who is quite influential, as they say, but also, as it's written in scholarship, there's a very nice Russian scholar, Alona Lidineva, she's in the UK, by the way. She writes about how hard it is to identify these forms of influence and power because all of it is secret and remains non-transparent and informal. That's why it's informal governance. But one person that could be figured in all of this is, for example, Vano Chartishvili or anybody else who exercises a lot of influence and power over economic as well as political processes.
Another general election is ahead of us. Are you prepared for it? And if so, who do you consider as a possible ally, or which political parties will be in your blacklist?
2024 is not an ordinary election. Georgian Dream has been in power for more than 10 years. It has overstepped the usual democratic cycle of 2 terms. And I think there's a lot of discontent in public. There's an impetus for change. And these are going to be transformative elections, I think, just like 2003 elections and 2012 elections. Therefore, we have to prepare for it very well. I wouldn't say we are already in the campaign mode. We are in the preface to the campaign mode. Campaign mode is very intense and to the elections. We are preparing for the election messaging specifically. A lot will depend, of course, what the EU will decide. That's a very serious variable. And for people that don't know Georgian recent history very well, it's hard to explain, but I'll try. The peculiarity of Georgian politics is that we have two big dominant parties right now, and that is the ruling party, and another one is United UNM. But the problem is not that they're polarization per se, but the problem is the recent past of Georgian history, because of which a lot of undecided voters will not vote for UNM due to its human rights record. So when we speak of alliances, it's really important also for my constituency to delineate who are your potential allies, because an alliance with UNM then has to have a clarification of what kind of alliance is this? What kind of vision do we have of with the judiciary? Because UNM's record with judges, with human rights, with prisons has been dismal, right? So for us, the alliance is excluded with GD and UNM, and we will, when we are developing, and we will develop relations with parties that are beyond these two poles. But these relationships could be just collegial, could be an alliance, could be a partnership, could be issue-based partnership. What form they will take, I think future will show.
Well, let's make it clear. Would you work with Lelo, Girchi More Freedom, Citizens, DROA, or for Georgia parties?
So I would first say that we are very European party in terms of European tradition of governance, in the sense that we collaborate with various parties on issue basis. So first of all, we are a party which has a very strong issue-based agenda, and which would be close to social democratic agenda worldwide, right? And we collaborate with other parties in other countries who share with the same agenda. Domestically, we have issue-based collaboration with everybody you mentioned. So for instance, on gender issues in Tbilisi Council, we collaborate both with Lelo and with Gagaria. On other issues, we collaborate with Lelo without a problem. We can collaborate. We had same position in relation to the conscription and recruitment in the military with Girchi, as much as you would be surprised. Our position coincided. So we will continue working in that vein, and I would not right now, since we even don't know what cards are on the table, in the sense that we don't know what kind of support each of us has. It's too far ahead before elections. I would not like to delineate a specific partner. One question is true, though, that will not be UNM among the opposition, and definitely not GD.
Speaking of the elections, as you may know, in 2024, for the first time in our history, 90% of the population of Georgia will vote via electronic devices. Tell us your opinion about this major change.
So it's currently being tested, as I understand, in two precincts, two election districts. It was tested right now, although these elections were not competitive. So even if they were tested, I would have to look very, very carefully how the system works. We have to understand we come from a specific traumatic past where people are used to the idea that the government is surveying them. And here I mean Soviet past, right? They're used to the idea that they're being wiretapped, that there is no division between private and public life, there is no privacy. So we have to see first, test, hear from people what they think about the mechanisms that will be put in place, and moreover, what mechanisms there are, in fact, to ensure the privacy and the secrecy of choice. Because, for instance, what has been a serious problem recently, in recent elections, in last all years, since cell phones have been invented with a camera, is that cell phones with camera have been used as pressure instruments for public to monitor how they vote. So they were asked to take a screenshot of the ballot and to deliver it to their boss or to their workplace. And therefore, I have initiated, for instance, a proposal to ban the use of cell phones in the voting booth. It was never heard by the GD, by the way. However, so my point here is that people here are under a lot of pressure during election time, and they're used to being threatened with surveillance, monitoring, finding out what their choice is. The secrecy of the ballot usually, very often, is violated. So I see the dangers with electronic voting, but I also see very, very big benefits, right? Although in many countries, including the United States, there is no electronic voting. People here still vote with old-fashioned ballots. So let's see what will be the reports from these two districts and what is the outcome, what are the feelings among the population, and what the experts say, both technical as well as political experts. And then we will arrive at the judgment whether or not this is a step forward.
Your political profile is full of stories of defending those who were oppressed by political leaders. Case of Sandro Girguliani is a good example of it. I wonder if you, as a person with such reputation, may run for the presidential office in 2024.
What a question. What a question. Let's see.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? Well, let me say I haven't thought about it. It has been.
Do you exclude it?
I've been told this by public, by citizens on social media. No, I certainly don't exclude it. But so the way the political timeline will work, first we have parliamentary elections, and then we will have indirect elections of the president. No longer we'll have direct. Unfortunately, I fought a lot against this, but we will not have direct elections anymore. So first we have to work on, I think most important, most paramount is political transformation. Where the power lies, policymaking lies, it's the parliament. And I will devote my best resources to making sure we succeed in this realm. Then we'll speak about the rest.
Okay. 2 months have passed since the Shovi landslide, one of the worst days of the year and of the century for us. What do you think about the measures taken by the government?
That's one of the most serious challenges for this government right now. Not only Shovi, but climate change and sustainable development overall. The government here is failing miserably. I will use these words. It's a reality. It's the sustainable development, climate change is an issue at the top of agendas of all governments. Unfortunately, we are not doing enough of homework. What happens? How are we affected? Well, we live next to Caucasus Mountains, and we know a lot from experts that the ice on the Caucasus Mountains is melting, but all of this is hearsay. In fact, our demand is that the government should be vocal voice internationally and domestically about environment and climate change. If this had been the case, we wouldn't have Shovi. Relative measures in terms of the alarm system, alert system, early warning, civil defense, everything would have been right now in place. Unfortunately, we don't even have a civil defense system. When I was growing up as a kid in Soviet Union, we used to have regular trainings for civil defense, for environmental issues, for sudden problems that could happen, explosion or earthquakes. And this system has been abolished with no replacement. So for Shovi, government wasn't ready. They were not paying attention to climate change at all. Even now, we don't know what happened. Even now, we don't know the truth. And the biggest question, I was just in Western Georgia, and biggest question people from Raja ask is this: are we going to avert the same thing next time? And I say no, because what we haven't seen is any kind of action even after Shovi. What we request is, where is a program, a government vision strategy to tackle climate change? And where is a high intensive attention to this issue? Nowhere, unfortunately. So we remain unprotected. Questions in relation to Shovi remain unanswered. And I think one of the reasons why we need to change the government is we need to put in place those people who understand what sustainable development is, not just development and economic development, but sustainable development.
Would you say that the government is responsible for the death of more than 30 people?
I would really like to have an honest discussion with the ruling party about Chauvet. That would be very important. An honest discussion means something like abroad, it could be a public inquiry, it could be a journalistic investigation, anything where the government would not consider it as an attack on it, but as an invitation for a discussion. So I would say serious questions remain. We haven't heard what steps the government was capable of taking and took in relation to averting this environmental disaster. We don't know. Everything we have heard from government in relation to, for instance, rescue helicopters is gossip and self-contradictory. So this issue, if we want to avert similar cases in the future, we live in a in a beautiful environment, but in a highly volatile region, geographically, right, and geologically. So as much as we enjoy what we have around us, the Caucasus, we have to know and we have to have a grip on it, and we have to feel what's going on with it, with nature. And right now, unfortunately, I don't see anything in this regard, no movement.
Femicide is the problem our society faces even today. Women are beaten and killed by those who should love them the most. What do you think is the way out of this problem?
It's a very sensitive issue. And if anybody's watching Georgian news, they can see that at least once a week we will hear a horrible story of femicide. Last week also there was one. Women are killed in front of their kids, in front of their parents, with their family members. I would say in general, family violence, broadly violence against kids and violence against women is a serious problem. And I'm very thankful that the EU mentioned this in its agenda because it let us highlight that this is a serious issue. And so far we don't know a single measure that the government took to avert this. And we will be paying price for this for many years. Everybody engaged in this is deeply traumatized, right? Deeply impacted. They will need rehabilitation. They will need healthcare. They will need to become members of the society, and all of these stories will keep working, unfortunately, in a negative way. We know this from trauma scholarship. And unfortunately, the awareness of this government is on relation to this is very limited. And we have to keep pressure because and thankfully there are lots of NGOs, there's foreign aid, and there is a great demand from the public to take some measures.
Anna Dolidze, it was my pleasure to interview you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Wish you best of luck.
Thank you so much.